The rope dug into my palm as I tore through the pine grove behind our cool, sack, heart hammering like a war drum. My daughter's muffled sobs carried on the damp evening air, a sound I will never forget. "Call your dad." A boy's mocking voice echoed through the trees, high, pitched and cruel. "Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from, because what happened next still makes my neighbors gasp whenever they hear it." I crashed through a thicket and froze. There she was, Emma, her arms cinched to a sapling with neon paracord, her sneakers scraping the bark as she struggled. The smell of wet earth and pine sap clung to the back of my throat. A lanky teenage boy stood a few feet away, phone raised, smirk gleaming in the last light of sunset. Earlier that afternoon, everything had been quiet, almost too perfect. The lawn smelled of fresh cut grass and the air hummed with late, summer heat. Emma had begged to ride her bike along the path that cut behind the hoe's manicured hedges, and I finally gave in. I was sipping sweet tea on the porch, watching cicadas swirl, when I noticed the silence shift. No laughter, no whit of bike tires, just an uneasy stillness that made the hairs on my neck stand. I called her name once, twice, my voice swallowed by the heavy air. When she didn't answer, a prickle of panic crawled down my spine. I grabbed the flashlight and headed toward the trail, each step crunching over gravel that suddenly sounded far too loud. I spotted her bike first, tipped on its side beside the path, front wheels still spinning like a ghost had jumped off mid-ride. My chest tightened. A faint scuff of sneakers led toward the woods, and a burst of teenage laughter, sharp, mocking, broke the quiet. My mind raced through every warning I'd ever read in neighborhood emails about strangers and late-day walks. I picked up speed, breath short and hot in the humid air. The smell of pine needles mixed with something metallic, a tang of fear maybe, pushing me forward. Another laugh sliced through the dusk, followed by Emma's muffled cry. My hand shook as I shoved through the underbrush, branches snapping against my arms. The boy holding the phone looked maybe 14, a shock of blonde hair sticking out under a backwards cap. His sneakers were caked in mud like he'd been waiting there for hours. Emma's cheeks glistened with tears as she twisted against the rope, eyes wide with terror. "What are you doing?" I barked, my voice coming out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. He barely flinched, just tilted his head and sneered. "Relax, lady, it's a prank. Call your dad, right?" His tone dripped with arrogance, like he owned those woods. Behind him, another figure stepped from the shadows. A woman in a pastel cardigan, clutching a clipboard like it was a badge of authority. The woman's voice cut through the twilight like a blade. "This is private HOS property," she declared, chin lifted, eyes narrowing as if I were the intruder. Her pastel cardigan barely moved in the humid breeze, but the clipboard in her hand flashed like a weapon. "Your daughter was trespassing. My son was merely detaining her until we could speak." My pulse roared in my ears, detaining. I repeated, stepping closer, every muscle tight. "She's 9 years old. Untie her now." The boy smirked wider, phone still recording, his sneakers grinding pine needles into the damp soil. Emma whimpered, the rope rubbing her wrists raw. I could smell the acrid tang of sweat mixed with the sharp resin of the tree. Neighbors began to appear at the trail's edge, drawn by my raised voice and the strange scene lit by the dim glow of sunset. Their silhouettes formed a tense semicircle, whispering like dry leaves. Karen, that name practically announced itself, pivoted toward them, voice rising. "We have rules. Children riding unsupervised are a hazard. My son is protecting the community." Gasps rippled through the small crowd. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms, a low thunder rolling in my chest. "Protecting? You call tying up a child protection?" I shot back. Her eyes flashed, but she didn't budge. Instead, she flipped a page on her clipboard, as if a sheet of paper gave her the authority to bind someone else's kid. I lunged toward the rope, but the boy stepped forward, blocking me with a cocky grin. Mon said stay put. He taunted. His voice cracked slightly, betraying a flicker of unease, but he didn't move. My flashlight beam caught the metallic clasp of a pocket knife clipped to his shorts, a detail that twisted my stomach. I forced my voice low and steady, "Move aside, now." Behind me a neighbor muttered, "This isn't right," but no one stepped closer. Karen raised her chin higher, the porch lights from nearby houses reflecting off her gold earrings. "You're escalating this," she said coolly. "Perhaps we should call the sheriff and let him decide who's in the wrong." The name sheriff hit me like a spark on dry tinder. Please, I said, my voice snapping, call him, right now. A few neighbors exchanged uneasy glances. Someone pulled out a phone, perhaps dialing already. Karen's lips tightened into a thin line, but she stayed silent. The boy shifted, the first sign of doubt flickering in his eyes. I reached for Emma again, and this time he didn't stop me. My hands trembled as I worked at the knot, the rough cord scraping my knuckles. Emma's breath came in quick hiccups, her face streaked with tears and pine sap. The rope finally slackened, and I pulled her into my arms, feeling her heart hammer against mine like a trapped bird. Karen exhaled sharply, a sound like a hiss, and pointed her clipboard at me. You'll be hearing from the HOS board, she warned, her voice ringing through the trees, and perhaps from my husband as well. He's Delta. He knows how to handle situations like this. The name hung in the air like a threat. Delta? Neighbors stiffened, their murmurs swelling into nervous ripples. Karen's eyes glittered confident, as if her husband's title could erase what we'd just witnessed. I tightened my grip on Emma, feeling her small body tremble against me. Delta what? I asked, my voice low but steady. Force. Karen replied with a triumphant tilt of her head. Special operations. He protects this entire community. When he gets here, you'll regret the way you've spoken to me. A distant hum of tires on gravel reached our ears, growing louder until headlights cut through the trees. Emma buried her face in my chest, and a cold dread seeped into my spine. A black SUV slid to a stop at the trailhead, lights extinguished with military precision. The driver's door swung open, and a man stepped out, tall and broad, shouldered, wearing dark tactical pants and a plain gray tee that clung to his frame. The crowd parted instinctively, their chatter dying to silence. His boots crunched the gravel like slow drum beats as he approached. Karen straightened, relief flooding her face. Honey, she called, this woman let her child trespass and then threatened us. He didn't answer right away. Instead, his eyes scanned the scene, the rope still dangling from the sapling, Emma's tear. Streaked face, my clenched fists. The air thickened with pine and tension. Is this true? He finally asked, voice calm but carrying the weight of command. Karen stepped closer to him, gesturing toward me. Our son was only keeping the neighborhood safe. She insisted. This is exactly why we need stricter HOS rules. He didn't even glance at her. His gaze locked on the boy, who shifted uneasily, phone now lowered. Untie, the man said flatly, though the rope was already loose. The boy swallowed hard. It was just a prank, he muttered. The man's jaw flexed. He turned slowly to his wife. You let him tie a child to a tree. His tone sharpened, low and dangerous. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. The crowd's collective breath seemed to pause. I stepped forward, steadying my voice. Your son restrained my 9-year-old. Your wife stood there and called it protection. Emma clung to me tighter. The man's eyes darkened, a storm brewing behind them. Ma'am, I'm sorry, he said finally, each word clipped. This is not what we stand for, not in Delta, not anywhere. Karen's face drained of color. But she started, but he cut her off with a single look that made even the night insects fall silent. Inside, now. His command left no room for argument. Karen's clipboard slipped from her fingers, papers scattering across the damp ground like startled birds. The boy followed his mother reluctantly as the man turned back to me. I'll handle this, he said firmly. Expect an apology and you won't have trouble again. The tension in my chest eased, replaced by a quiet exhaustion. Neighbors began murmuring, some stepping closer with words of support, their flashlights swinging across the trees. Emma lifted her head, eyes wide but calmer now, and I whispered that we were safe. The man gave a sharp nod before disappearing into the shadows after his family, leaving the rope, the crowd, and the heavy scent of pine as witnesses to a night none of us would ever forget.